Hello, Year 9 parents and pupils, and thank you very much for joining us on this parent information evening. Obviously, we are sad that it is virtual once again. Hopefully, we'll be able to return to face as soon as possible. During the session, you will see a range of different speakers. We will have an introduction, obviously, from Mrs. Hoarty, and that will link into the key priorities for the year for the school. We've also got Mrs. Hoskins talking about safeguarding. I'll do some chats about PPEs and an introduction to what they are and how you can best support your child through that process. We've also got an introduction regarding the Duke of Edinburgh. I know something that the students in school are very excited about, and then also a great presentation about interactive revision, which is very timely for us, of course, with the PPEs ongoing and coming up. So thank you very much. As always, I would encourage you to contact me if you have any questions about anything that's raised this evening. Also, obviously, as always, please do feel free to contact staff in school. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the presentations.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us remotely for our Parents Information Evening. As head teacher, I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce the evening by sharing with you my thoughts about the vision for St Paul's and our key priorities. On the screen behind me, you will see the mission statement. We continuously refer to the simplified version of our mission as being to love, to serve, and to do the best that's possible. This is what we are all trying to put into action during our everyday lives at St Paul's. Over the last few years, our key messages have been to emphasise the fact that we are a Catholic school. We strive to provide a holistic education. We want your children to achieve the best possible academic outcomes, but beyond this, we are committed to ensuring that your child is well known as an individual and well cared for. We aim to nurture and develop your child's unique gifts and talents fully. So our priorities are very clear. We aim to ensure excellent academic outcomes for your children. We aim to ensure that there's impeccable behaviour in our school at all times. We want to make sure that your children experience outstanding teaching and robust intervention when they need support. And it's really important that we provide the widest possible range of high quality extracurricular activities for all of the children. Beyond this, over the last 2 years, we've been working with staff in all different roles within schools to develop their skills as leaders and make sure that they are able to reflect and articulate their leadership skills and the leadership they're demonstrating at an extremely high level. And during this academic year, we are now extending that to make sure that we are focusing on developing the leadership skills of the pupils in our care. I hope that you will find the information contained within the presentation this evening helpful and informative.
Good evening. We wanted to start by reminding our parents of the staff who are responsible for safeguarding at St Paul's. Mr Roach is our pastoral manager, and he's also our designated safeguarding officer, and myself, Mrs Hoskins, who is the senior chaplaincy assistant, is our deputy designated safeguarding lead. The areas listed on this slide you will be familiar with, as we have discussed them with you over your child's time at St Paul's during our presentations. However, this year we have also included peer-on-peer abuse. Parents will also be aware of the survey we have recently been asked to take part in regarding knife crime in Milton Keynes. This has been prepared by the Violence Reduction Group at Milton Keynes Council. We would be grateful if you could complete this in order to help them in their research. And as our Year 9 students are beginning to reach an age where they have more freedom and are more financially independent, it's important that they are even more alert to the opportunities that perpetrators will have to exploit them, whether this be financially, sexually, or through the criminal world. This year, in September, Year 9s received a safeguarding assembly where we talked in greater depth about the risk of exploitation, peer-on-peer abuse, keeping themselves safe, and consent. We have also this year introduced a reporting button for students on their It's Learning platform. This is to allow students to report concerns electronically, especially where they feel they cannot do this face-to-face. We would continue to remind both parents and students that our doors are always open and that we will always do our best to support students in keeping themselves safe. Many thanks for listening and have a good evening.
Good evening, I'm Julia Wilson and I'm the Head of Languages. As you can imagine in our subject, memory plays quite an important role. And so we have a range of activities that we like to think are quite fun, but which we do also know are very, very effective. And we're going to share a few of those with you today. So to start off with, in just a minute, you're going to flick onto the next slide and you're going to read a series of questions and facts from lots of different subjects. As you're reading them, I want you to think about them. And at the end, we're going to ask you to see how many you can remember off the top of your head. Once we've done that, we're going to share a few techniques with you and we're going to see how effectively you can remember them at the end of this short session. So your next step is to flick onto the next slide and to read your facts. I'll see you there. Okay, well, here are your facts. I'd like you to do your very best using any techniques that spring to your mind about how to memorise these. There's quite a lot there. There's some that are more challenging than others, and it's really for you to see the difference between where you are now without having learnt the techniques, and then at the end of this session to see what difference the techniques made and their impact on your ability to recall things. So take as much time as you want looking at these facts, just speaking them out loud, trying to remember them, and then I'll see you on the next slide where we're going to spend quite a bit of time going through one of our most fun and effective activities for memorising facts. I'll see you on the next slide. Take your time. Welcome to one of our all-time favourite activities for getting facts into our memories. I have to say it's probably one of the children's favourites as well. We purchased this set of classroom buzzers from Amazon. I think they're called Farmyard buzzers, and they cost us about £14, so if you were minded to, they're not too expensive. The atmosphere in the classroom when we're playing this is really electric. The children love it. There's a huge sense of competition, and I'm going to play the buzzers for you now, and you can imagine this multiplied by a class full of 30 children. It really is quite an atmosphere. So see if you can identify which animals we have here. Yep, that's a farmyard dog. Here's another famous farmyard animal. That wakes you up in the morning. And here's old favourite. And it just wouldn't be the same without this animal. So yes, you can imagine if everybody's buzzing their buzzers, you can imagine there's quite an atmosphere. However, on a serious note, as teachers, we love this activity because for as long as the children want to keep playing it, they are, of course, getting the practice they need to embed it in their longer term memory. And we're going to have a go at doing that now, albeit remotely. It's probably not going to be quite as electric as it would be if we were all crammed together in the Mooring Grant room, but hopefully you can get a sense of fun. I recommend that you smack the table, and that might set off one of your buzzers if you have one. Smack the table when you think you know the answer. See how quickly you can answer. So I'm going to start off by asking you a question, and then you're going to see how quickly you can answer. If you need to have a quick check on the previous slide before we start, you can pause this now and have a quick look and then come back to this slide. So, starting now with English. Could you give me a useful quotation about power? Go for it. with a little bit of luck, you may have remembered the answer, which is this famous quotation, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Now we're going to move on to a question about French, which is my subject. And I'm just, normally I'd be prancing around putting on a very French sort of sophisticated look. So if you can just picture that, we're going to try and get a bit of practice in, first of all, and then you're going to see how quickly you can answer my question later on in this session. Now, looking at the answer to the question, it is la. Could you repeat that, please? La. And now here's the French word for music, musique, la musique. Say la musique. And then we're going to say me, la musique me. And finally, play. Can you picture some little children playing with their toys or riding their bikes? So, la musique. Do a very sophisticated action with your hand there. La musique me plaît. Repeat after me. La musique me plaît. Well done. So going with the theme of repetition, could you say that 3 more times, please? La musique me plaît. Off you go. Well done. Hopefully you said la musique me plaît. Literally, that means the music me pleases. But we'd translate it as I like music. So listen out for that question later. I just wanted to give you a bit of practice with the pronunciation. So anyway, could you just very quickly tell me a useful quotation about power again? Say that quotation. And hopefully you said something like, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." So now we're going to have a quick look at how a famous scientist, J.J. Thomson, viewed an atom. Now, the name for this is called the plum pudding model, which is quite a nice picture. So could you picture a plum pudding, please? So a nice Christmas pudding should be fairly fresh in our memories from Christmas. And could you picture all the little raisins in it? And apparently that's something to do with atoms. Yeah, you've learnt something, or maybe some of us have. I know I have. So how did J.J. Thomson view an atom? The answer is the plum pudding mode. By the way, what's a useful quotation about power? Could you answer, please? And now, just in case you were looking, you may want to look away and repeat after me. And do it with proper drama here. Helps your brain to remember it. Look on my works, ye mighty. Do a good fist action when you do that. Look on my works. Here comes your fist. Ye mighty. And despair. And could you draw some little tears falling down your cheeks? So, look on my works. So put 2 fingers up to your eyes. Like circles, look on my works. Now your fist, ye mighty. And finally your little tears and despair. By the way, how did J.J. Thomson view an atom? What piece of food was it that he referred to? Did you remember the plum pudding model? Let's see. Now, how do you say I like music if you want to sound elegant in French? Can you do la? Please, and can you do it as if you've got a handbag in your hand? It's feminine, you see, in French music. Sorry, fathers and brothers and other men who are contributing to this or practicing with us, but I want you to do a girly action, please. La musique me plaît. Remember, we're picturing there the play, the little children playing. Okay, by the way, how did J.J. Thomson view an atom? Yes, it was the plum pudding model. Now, let's go on to a bit of RE. What is the Christian aim of punishment? Is it retribution? Is it just enjoying being mean to people? No, it is not. It is reform. We want that person to be a reformed character. It's for rehabilitation. It's to make them a useful member of society. So the Christian aim of punishment is reform. Right, let's go to the top. What is a useful quotation about power? Now bring your fingers up to your eyes and turn them into spectacles. Look on my works. And now your fist. What's the word that goes with your fist? Yep, ye mighty. And then your little tears dropping down your cheeks. And despair. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Without looking, how did J.J. Thomson view an atom? Yes, the plum pudding model. And by the way, what's the Christian aim of punishment? Yes, indeed, it's reform. And now finally, 4 words. I like music. Get your handbags out. La musique. And can you do some actions that make you look French when you do that? Musique. My arms are gesticulating all over the place. Me. Tap your head. Me. And then little children, what are they doing? Play. Well done. La musique me plaît. Okay, now we're going to history and we're going to remember one fact about history. Namely, can you name one effect of the 1929 stock market crash? Now I'm going to ask you to picture long lines of people queuing around the banks in New York, up and down the pavements. So one effect of the 1929 stock market crash was everybody emptied their bank accounts. So we'll picture people queuing up around the block and then people as they're leaving the banks with big black sacks full of cash. So everyone emptied their bank accounts. And now we're on to our final fact, geography. Goodness knows, I hope we've got some geographers amongst us. Infiltration versus percolation. Right, can you picture the surface of some ground? Good. And now can you picture the soil underneath it? So we've got the surface, maybe with a few plants growing out of it, the top of the soil, and infiltration is going into the soil, from the surface to the soil. And then percolation is from the soil deeper still into the rock. So infiltration goes from the surface into the soil and percolation goes deeper yet, soil to rock. Surface to soil, soil to rock. Okay, what's the Christian aim of punishment, folks? Did you get reform? Well done if you did. How did J.J. Thomson view an atom? Yum, yum, yum is what I'm thinking. Yes, he had it as the plum pudding model. Remember, PP, plum pudding model. Okay, and thinking about power, could you put your fingers up to your eyes and turn them into spectacles, please? Look on my works. Now your fist, ye mighty. Tears falling down your cheeks and despair. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Okay, infiltration versus percolation. Think about surface, soil, and then what? Okay, anybody want to say I like music in an elegant way? Handbags out. La. And then musique. Then tap your head. Me. And what do children do? Play. La musique me plaît. What happened in 1929 after the stock market crash? Picture those people. Who's leaving the banks? What have they just done? Yes, they have indeed emptied their bank accounts. Right, now let's ask those questions one more time. Make sure you're not looking at the answers. This is now for you to see how many you remember. Count on each finger the ones you get right. English. What is a useful quotation about power? Say it now. If you said this, give yourself 1 mark. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Question number 2, science. How did J.J. Thomson view an atom? Yum, yum. If you said the plum pudding model, then give yourself 1 mark, please. Now on to religious education. What's the Christian aim of punishment? Did you say reform? Give yourself a mark. 1929, stock market crash. What was one effect of it? Did you say everyone empty their bank accounts? Brilliant. Give yourself a mark. Here comes a technical one, folks. Geography. What is infiltration? And what is percolation? Give yourself a mark if you said that infiltration was surface to soil, and give yourself another mark if you said percolation was soil to rock. And finally, French. The elegant way of saying I like music. You have 4 words, starting with your handbag and ending with little children. Off you go. Did you say la musique me plaît? If you did, give yourself a mark. Well done. Now, in a minute, we're going to move on to the next slide where we're going to learn about ping pong. And hopefully you're going to remember these facts a little bit more quickly. But hopefully you there saw the effect of memorising, of repeating things and going over them a few times actively. Okay, I'll join you on the next slide for ping pong. Right, ping pong. So, this is a quick fire thing where we end up basically putting people under pressure, just 2 of you working together, where one of you is asking the questions and the other is coming back with the answer. So you can see on this slide we've put one of our questions up there. Christian aim of punishment is what person number A will say, and person B will say reform, because of course it's all in your head now after you've done all that practice. So here are some questions, see how quickly you come back. So, can you give me a useful question about power, please? Go. How did J.J. Thomson view an atom? Go. What's the Christian aim of punishment? Go. Tell me one effect of the 1929 stock market crash, please. Folks, what is infiltration versus percolation? 2 marks here if you get it right. And finally, can I have an elegant version of I like music? Go. Okay, now if there's 2 of you there, I'm going to suggest that somebody else answers the questions now. So here they are again. Can you give me a useful quotation about power, please? And how did J.J. Thomson view an atom? What's the Christian aim of punishment? Can you tell me one effect of the 1929 stock market crash? What's infiltration versus percolation? And now, the elegant version of I like music. 4 words. Go. Well done, folks. See you on the next slide. So this slide provides you with an opportunity to have another bit of a practice with the 2 of you, or maybe 2 others if we have a whole family here. So folks, can you have a quick practice, and I'll see you on the next slide with the title La musique me plaît. So welcome to the slide with La musique me plaît at the top. You can see here another technique that we absolutely love, which is called a visual representation. Now, the way this works is that we think of things that I did kind of touch with you that help our brain to find other clues. It's where you give it other things to think about that reinforce the memory. So do you remember I was saying handbag, because it's a very girly word, la. And, you know, the more camp we can play it, the better, really. It helps the brain to remember when we do something dramatically. So there's your handbag that is linked to la. And then do you see musique? So I want you to remember the sound of that. Zik, mu. Zeke. And then I want you to tap your head, but there isn't a picture there of that. It's a physical thing, and tap your head and you're going to go ma. Could you say that now? Ma. So la is your handbag, musique, music, me means me, me, and then there's some children playing, play. La musique me plaît. Could you repeat, please? Off you go. Fantastic. So there is your visual representation for something that's really quite complex unless you happen to speak French. If you can move on to the next slide, please, where you'll see another picture representing the atom. Okay, well, if you're getting brain fade and everything's getting a bit stressful, you'll be delighted to know we are very nearly at the end of our memorising technique. So just one more visual representation to show you how this works. So, how J.J. Thomson saw atoms, and I always go yum yum because it somehow triggers another sense, namely my sense of taste, as I picture myself eating the plum pudding. So, how J.J. Thomson saw atoms. And can you see there? We have the plum pudding, the Christmas pudding, that's studded all the way through with little raisins, and those raisins are representing, in J.J. Thomson's mind, electrons, which are a part of an atom. So can we picture that? Look at those raisins and go raisins, electrons, raisins, electrons. So we've got the big concept, the plum pudding, and yum yum, raisins and electrons. Okay, everyone, look away from the screen and could you tell me what the raisins represent in an atom according to J.J. Thomson? If you said electrons, well done, you got it right. And I'll see you on the next slide. Okay, welcome to the Teacher's Pet Competition. If you were in the same room as us, you would have on your table a postcard that you could have handed in. Sadly, we're going to have to just pretend. I'm going to ask you, if you can, to go and get yourself something to write with and something to write on. And when you've done that, I'd like you, without looking at anything, to write down everything you can remember. What were the questions? What were the answers? Write them all down and give yourself, when you've done all of that, see how many facts you could remember.
Duke of Edinburgh Bronze Award. Duke of Edinburgh at St Paul's. The Duke of Edinburgh scheme is recognised around the world as a way for students to grow their confidence, teamwork and social awareness skills. Students undertake a period of volunteering, commit to physical activity for an hour a week, and learn a new skill. Within school, we aim to facilitate as much of the scheme as possible. There are volunteering opportunities in subject areas as well as in the library. After-school sports clubs can be used for the physical section, and there are a number of teachers who are willing to assess students' progress in their chosen skill. The final part of the scheme is a 2-day, 1-night hiking and camping expedition. Students will receive full training towards this, and there is also a well-stocked kit store in school for students to borrow equipment from. Students will be provided with online training through its learning, as well as a training day in school on the 5th of February. The expedition dates for this year are 6th to 7th of May. Year 9 students have the exciting opportunity to sign up to begin their Bronze Duke of Edinburgh Award. Letters with full details are being sent to parents via In Touch this week. please direct any queries to Mrs. Goldsborough, and her email address is available now on screen. Thank you.
Okay, so parents and pupils of Year 9. In this section of the information evening, what we're going to talk about is your PPEs and look at ways to best prepare for them, both in terms of what you're doing in school and also the support that parents can offer at home as well. So I'm just going to share a PowerPoint now. So PPEs, first question could well be, what are PPEs? So PPE stands for pre-public examination, and they're formally known as mock exams. So it's very likely as parents, when you were at school, you would be able to think about and refer back to mock exams, but we now call them pre-public examinations. They are really, as Year 9 students, the first opportunity that they will have as a whole cohort, as a whole year group, to experience what it's like to sit what we would consider to be quite formal examinations. So they give them a really good experience of what it will be like to sit their GCSEs, and we are over really halfway towards those GCSEs now from since they started at St Paul's. So it's important for us now to build resilience for them in terms of what it's like. What we wouldn't want to happen is their very first experience of going and sitting an exam in the exam hall with 250 people is to be in their GCSE. So this gives a really good, realistic and robust experience of what it's like to plan, to prepare and to sit those formal and external examinations. It also gives teachers the opportunity to feed back to students their performance on those exams, and how they have done in either particular styles of questions, looking at the timing that's needed in exams, developing the skills for exams. So it's useful for teachers as well. And obviously it allows you at home to really look at what the strengths are in terms of planning and preparing for exams, and what some of the weaker areas may be, and give you the opportunity to think about and plan for those. Students will have the opportunity in Year 10 to sit PPEs, in Year 11 to sit PPEs. So we have 3 big formal experiences for them before they're sitting their GCSEs in the May and June of Year 11. So I guess at the moment we're in, I suppose we could call it a fortunate situation in that we can reflect back on this time last year when we had an extended period of time where pupils were working at home, and they were doing what we called remote school at that time. What were the strengths? What went well? What could be improved on? Because really looking at the ways in which students worked independently at that time might be able to help and consider where some of the strengths lie, but also where some of the targets might be for developing as we go forward for these PPEs. But an important thing obviously is being fully prepared. So the best way for pupils to prepare really is to listen to advice from parents, speak to siblings who may have gone through this process before, and most importantly subject teachers. Obviously we've got the support from parents, from siblings, from wider family, wider community, from tutors and mentors, but subject teachers will know what exams they are sitting for you. So which units will they cover, which topics will it cover, what will the length of the exam papers be? Will you sit one paper or more than one paper? But we would expect that each of the subjects that you are currently studying, you would sit at least one PPE exam. The exams take place during week commencing the 25th of April, so it's a week after the Easter holidays. So we've got the remainder of this Lent term to plan and to prepare, to look ahead and to think about ways that we can make it the best experience for you really, in terms of parents and pupils as well. It says at the bottom there about having a routine at home that parents and siblings are aware of and are able to support with. It will be a really good idea when planning and thinking about revision timetables to actually sit down together as a family to do that, because one time when a pupil may wish to complete their revision, that might be a time when it's a particularly busy time for the family and other things are happening within the home, or it may well be that there's other more appropriate times to do that. Also, when doing your revision timetables, think about sticking one of those somewhere quite prominent, so for example on the fridge, so everyone in the family can be aware of it. Set some ground rules for that as well. When will you be revising, where will you be revising, and how will you be revising? Something for you to think about as well, just looking at subject specific advice, as I've said already, that will come out most likely towards either the end of this half term or the beginning of next half term, depending on what the plans are for each of those subjects. But start to communicate with your teachers about this now. That's for you as parents and pupils as well. Pupils, obviously, in the first instance, we are encouraging pupils as we go through now the years for them to become increasingly independent. So either sending messages via It's Learning or asking teachers, hang around at the end of the lesson, go to find them at break or lunchtime in one of the subject workrooms, and ask some questions about PPEs if you want to. What topics might we be covering? Do you have any advice, any revision sites? I know for myself in psychology, there's a few sites that I would recommend that perhaps other teachers or tutors or mentors wouldn't know about. So your subject teachers are really important. Use It's Learning as well. You have a massive resource available to you with regards to It's Learning. As you go through and the PPEs become nearer, you will find that teachers will put subject specific PPE information onto their pages. We will also link to that from our Year 9 page as well, so you can use the Year 9 page kind of as a landing page to move on to those other pages in terms of their revision, as well as some specific advice on there as well. Independent learning. So when we talk about independent learning, most often we think about this as being homework, or what we used to call homework. Really what we're looking at is when you are working independent of the teacher. So anything that you do away from the classroom would be considered as independent learning. It is of vital importance. It's always really important. It consolidates the learning that's taken place in the lesson. It allows you to maybe go into things in more depth and more detail than you would have time to do in the classroom. And it allows you, if it's something that you're really interested in, to really go into a lot of depth and detail. Again, that you might not be able to, a route that you might not go down in terms of what the teachers are offering you in the lesson. But at this stage, for this next 3 months, it becomes even more important than it usually is. And that's because the closer the PPEs are, the more likely it is that your teachers will set for you independent learning, which specifically links to revising and planning for your PPE in that subject. So do please get into these good routines. If you can plan and prepare yourselves now well for these PPEs, it will serve you in such good stead as we go to your 10, year 11 and then on to your GCSEs. Make the mistakes that you may make now, learn from those mistakes. That's what we're here for. We're here to support you. The road and the path to your GCSEs isn't always going to be smooth, but by having these opportunities, it allows us to see. So if you know, for example, that you find it really difficult to complete independent learning at home on a Thursday and a Friday because there's other things happening there, perhaps with parents or siblings, then that should be a highlight to you at this stage. That wouldn't be a good time for you to be doing your revision. But what are you going to do about it? Because revision still has to happen. So will you take time and find out from home whether it's possible for you to stay in the library to complete some revision activities on those days? Would it be that you'll change the timing and you'll do some revision early and get up earlier in the mornings? It's entirely up to you, but obviously looking and thinking about how important your independent learning is will really serve you well. Students who work hard independently will do better in their GCSEs. That is a fact. It's not a question of whether it's true or whether it isn't true, and it probably is quite an obvious one as well, which I'm sure you're all aware of. So let's start to look now and focus and think about what you're going to do to plan and prepare for these. The first thing, this is probably like a really boring bit. It's like, oh my gosh, do I really need to plan? Whereas some other people, they'll spend so long, excuse me, they'll spend so long on their timetables and planning it that actually they don't get round to doing their actual revision. So procrastinating is when we make ourselves look busy doing something else when we should be doing maybe our revision. Now, creating a timetable is really useful. There's a page towards the back of your planner, 2 pages actually, which have got blank revision timetables in them. I would suggest that you photocopy a blank copy of those or write straight into there. It's entirely up to you. But sit down with your family and just think about, First thing, when can't you revise? So it's very likely there will be some times during the week that you already have prior commitments. So it may be that you're going to church, it might be that you have scouts or cadets, it might be that you're playing football at a particular time. That needs to be crossed out on your revision timetable. Your dinner time at home, they are the times that you cannot revise. Then what you would need to think about is when won't you revise because actually you need some downtime, and that's really, really important, and we can't emphasize that enough. There's kind of three pillars to success with regards to any kind of training. What you're looking at is the idea of the actual training, so with this case it will be the revision, the food that you are eating, so anything that you're consuming and putting into your body is where your brain is going to get its energy from. So let's make it positive. Fruit, bananas are amazing. They're a relatively cheap source of lots and lots of different things that your brain needs. So not eating too many sugary snacks, too many takeaways, having healthy food, fruits, vegetables, proteins, all of those normal things. Oily fish is really, really good. There's lots of stuff and information on the internet. So we've got if it's something you're interested in. Also, Mrs. Toledano is an absolute expert in this area. So if you're really interested in nutrition and supporting the way that you're revising as pupils, then do go and speak to her. With regards to this, so we've got, I've talked already about revision, so the actual revision that you do, the food that you eat, and then the third part is your rest, the sleep that you get, so, and also the rest away from that training. So it shouldn't be the case that your revision timetable is completely filled in for every single time and every single day between now and your PPEs in April. You need to identify in there some social time, some time away from your revision as well, because otherwise you'll just burn out before the exams are even here. Having said that, it's important, of course, that you allow yourself enough time to plan and prepare for the exams which are happening. There's no point in doing it just the week before. We're fortunate we'll have the Easter holidays, and we'll talk a little bit more closer to the time about the impact that you can have over those Easter holidays when you're not in school on your revision and your planning and your preparation. But as always, you still need downtime. You manage to organise your lives quite well, your social lives, playing Xbox, playing football, going shopping, any wide variety of things. So you can plan and prepare for your revision. So do please take some time as a family to look at that revision planner, the blank one that's in the planner, and yeah, just plan when your revision would be. It should be starting now. Now, most of your subjects won't have actually given you yet, won't have actually given you yet your topics really, and that's okay. Ask your teachers if there are any topics yet that they can advise for you. It may be a little bit early for them to have done that, but if they can provide that for you, that's brilliant. But if not, go over the content, practice the skills that you need for revision with the content that you're doing in your lessons. So allow your revision time to start now. Really, ultimately, you should be revising and reviewing stuff all of the time. The more that you can do, the easier you will find it as those exams approach. There are, having said that, a wide range of revision techniques available to you and which are suitable. There are, I'm going to link in a moment just to something we've got on It's Learning for you. But the most important thing that I want you to think about is, how do you learn best? Now, there is lots of research evidence that says if all that you do is sit down and you read through your notes, you are not going to do well with your revision. That is not effective. Even if you think that's a good way of doing it, it isn't. It isn't going to work well as the stuff gets harder and harder that you're having to recall. Certainly as we go to GCSEs and then onto your A-levels and onto university. So we need to develop skills which mean that you are being active in your revision and not passive in your revision. So passive is when you're not doing much, when you're just reading through something, whereas active is when you are actively doing something in addition. So you may well be reading through your notes, but you might want to transform those into something like a revision clock, into revision cards. You also need to make sure that you're testing yourself. That's very, very important, and often something that can be forgotten. You need to be regularly retrieving the information back from your brain. That's part of our working memory, and looking at the ways in which, our brain is a muscle. The more that we use it, the better it will be. So if all we ever do is put information into it, and we don't ever try to retrieve it, we are not going to be successful. So we need to retrieve information, some information that we learned today, some we learned last week, some we learned last month. Getting into the habit of that would be brilliant. But use these first couple of weeks now, just of this term, just to be thinking about which revision technique is going to work for you. How do you like to revise? And we will be doing some activities during tutor time, certainly next half term, where you will be looking at trying out a range of different revision techniques. But I would strongly encourage you to take some time out now just to research, to have a look at what we have available to you, either on It's Learning or the wider kind of community, really. Just whilst we're on that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just come back onto the screen. I'm just going to show you what is open to you with regards to the school website and also It's Learning. So with regards to parents, if you click on, this is our school website, as you know, if you click on the curriculum link and then scroll down the page, you will come down to an independent learning section. And obviously, as we know, revision is part of the independent learning process. And on here, there are a variety of resources that are available to you that you will be able to use with your child, and which I've also put on It's Learning, so that they can access those as well. So for example, there's information here for pupils about study skills for success, and it talks about a range of different revision activities that have been found to be the most successful in terms of planning and revising for exams. Each of these, when you go on here, if you click on each of these little red buttons, it will take you to a short clip from Mr. Tillman, which talks about that in terms of the particular study skills that are there, and obviously you can use those for revision. So I would strongly advise you to take some time out to have a look through that. And then we also have a page there for parents, just to give you some advice and some ideas in terms of the best ways that you can support your child. Excuse me. So we've got space practice, interleaving, retrieval practice, sleep, very, very important, having a tech blackout. Now this can create some tension at home, and I know this myself, I know the conversations that we have with pupils in school. There are some amazing, excellent, wonderful apps that you can get for revision, some incredible websites for revision. However, if you are on websites all of the time, you are very likely to get notifications coming up from your social media if you're using your phone. So just be aware of that. Would it be more appropriate perhaps for you to put your phone onto airplane mode whilst you're using an app for revision? Would it be more appropriate actually for you to do revision in a slightly different way so that you're not getting distracted by that? And that's again something for you to negotiate at home. So have a negotiation in terms of perhaps not just the revision timetable and which subjects and content you'll be covering, but perhaps also some ideas of how you will be doing it. One of the things that we definitely know is that variety will really help. So there's no point in just doing the same thing over and over again. What you want to do is be using a variety of different ways. So most of the time you wouldn't have your phone available to you because you're not going to be using it. I know myself, if I've got my phone next to me and I'm trying to do some work, I'm sure parents said the same, the temptation to look on it, a message will come through, and then that will, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, you've ended up using up that time. So just do be aware of that. It's not something for you to be arguing, pupils, please. So, your parents know what is best for you. Please listen to them. If there's any questions about this, always feel free to contact us in school, by the way, because we're very experienced in knowing about, the arguments that pupils can put forward in terms of, oh, I need to use my phone for this and that. And there's always alternatives. So please do, for some of the revision time, have a complete tech blackout. You're not going to have access to technology in the vast majority of the exams that you're doing unless you're studying something like ICT, where there's a requirement and an element on a computer. So the vast majority is going to be with a pen in your hand, writing on paper when you're doing your exams. So that should be what your revision is like as well. There's information there about study spaces. We are very aware that everyone will have different circumstances at home and a different amount of space. Some children will be very fortunate and have a desk area somewhere. Some may not have that, but even having a corner of a room somewhere which they know is their space for the period of revision would be really, really useful, and the opportunity to be able to put revision posters up on the walls, perhaps as well, where that is possible. And then you've got information there about organisation and delayed gratification as well. So just an understanding that if you can do the hard bit now, the rewards will come later. We've also got on here on the school website information there about the independent learning toolkit, which is something that I'm going to come on to in a moment. With regards to any of those resources I've shown you, they are also on the Year 9 page on It's Learning. So this is something that every student in Year 9 has access to, in fact in the whole school, but in terms of the Year 9 page. So every subject has a page which has got all of the information on there. I'm sure we're quite aware of all of this now with regards to the remote school that we did. And what we've done is, as you can see on the right hand side there, we have got a Year 9 PPE area. This will be added to as the PPEs become closer, but at the moment there are a couple of useful links on here. So for example, a really, really good video from Mr. Tillman there, which would be useful for parents and pupils to take some time out to watch this evening. That's on the website as well. But the idea of misconceptions, things that students think are great. So, for example, sitting down with a book and highlighting, excuse me, highlighting notes and making things look pretty. All the kind of procrastinating really, but that information is there, so do take some time to watch that. And then we've got the study skills for success, which I've just shown you, and then independent learning. There's also some information there which I found on the internet about creating a revision timetable, and just some advice that I've spoke to you about already in terms of the ways that can be most effective, like for example making sure that you are taking time out to rest as well as getting on with the study too. So all of those important things there. So you've got access obviously to the school website as parents, and then the student pupils have got access to It's Learning, which is, I've transferred that information over. So this is the independent learning toolkit that we talked about. This is available on our website, and it's something that Mr. Tillman put together, and it's really useful and just gives us some really key bits of information about where we should be focusing and the tools that we should be having to be as successful as we possibly can. It's really useful at times of revision preparation, but to be fair, it's useful the whole of the time really for becoming independent. The more independent you can be, or the more successful you can be when working independently on your schoolwork, the more successful you will be in your exams and in life really, I guess, because you're developing those skills. So a couple of things, we're just going to focus on a couple of these areas. Excuse me. So for example, pupils, first off, here are some of the key things that you need to know, that you need to have. So having effective habits and routines. Part of that then is looking at planning and preparing your revision timetable. Being willing to persevere. So knowing yourself that actually you're willing to take risks, and it doesn't matter if you fail. You know, nobody in life is really good at something that they haven't also failed at, but the most successful people are the people who are willing to get things wrong, who are willing to look at and learn from those mistakes, and then to move forward from that. Knowing as well that if you complete your homework, complete your revision and independent learning, then you can play the video game or watch a program or contact your friends. It's a good idea actually to put into your revision, even if, excuse me, even if you are, let's say you've organised a period of 1 hour of revision. Within that, you should break that down maybe into 20-minute chunks. So revise for 20 minutes and then have a 1 or 2 minute break away from that revision and then come back to it. So maybe that 1 or 2 minutes you go off and have a chat with your family, go and get a glass of water or something like that. Maybe once you've got to the end of that 1 hour, that's the time at which you know you can spend 10 minutes on social media or whatever else it is that you want to see as your reward. Phones away, as we've said already, I've spoken about that. Thinking about the equipment that you need, so having everything out ready. That's where your study space can come in really handy, rather than having to get everything out. Even if you keep your revision stuff and your revision resources in a box somewhere, if you don't have the opportunity to have a study space, but being able to have that somewhere that is easily accessible to you, because sometimes just the thought of, oh, I've got to get all my stuff out and oh, it's here and it's in 5 different places. Keep it organised, be organised with this, because it really will help. And then thinking about making the link between, the better you are, as I've spoke about it already, the better you are about your independent learning, the more progress you are going to make. You will make more progress in lessons if you complete a wider range of independent learning tasks and revision tasks, and that therefore will mean that you do better in your Year 9 PPEs, and then ultimately better with all of your education really, and onto your job and life. So this really is a good opportunity for you to develop some skills that are going to help you as we go forward. So it's a win-win situation really. It's not just about the pupils, of course not, it's about parents as well. And here's some information for you in terms of the toolkit and things that you can develop with your child. Sorry. So show interest in the independent learning tasks your child is doing. Don't underestimate the power of communication with them. What are you doing today? What's your revision? You know, having that revision timetable up on the fridge can be really helpful, so that you and they can identify the time, think, well, this is what you should be doing now. Oh, it's 5 o'clock, that's when you said you were going to do your maths revision, for example. But also talk to them about it. What are you doing? What did you do at school today? What's your particular focus for a revision? Which skills are you developing? What content are you on? And then knowing that they can have those conversations with you is probably a real boost to them, as well as to you as well. And sometimes the response you're getting, no, I don't know, but just push with that a bit and just develop that communication. It will really do well for these PPEs and ongoing as well. Find a quiet place and time for them to study. As I say, we are very, very mindful of the fact that, you know, a wide range of different circumstances are there. But even if it's a case of them, you know, siblings know that in that hour there is no television because their brother is conducting some revision activities in the lounge, let's say, and they need to spend that time to do their homework or to read a book or other quiet things, or be in their bedrooms maybe. But just working that out between you as a family, so that there is that quiet space and effective place and time really for them to go. Know there's the homework, so independent learning is set, and there's a timetable on that space where I showed you on the school website, which gives information. Use their planner as well for that really. Look at their planner, talk to them about that. But obviously at this period of revision, it might be worth you sitting down with them and looking at its learning. Certainly next half term, once there will be more information available from departments for that. Encourage everything, you know, yes, they've got their revision timetable, but that's not everything that they need to be doing. Reading for pleasure is a really big thing. Find something that they like to read and just encourage it as much as possible. Support the tech blackout. Be quite firm with this. As you know, children will do what they can. Oh, my friends' mums let them listen to their music whilst they're doing their revision. It's an interesting one, that, because what we do know is that research says that the conditions that you are in when you learn something, if they are the same as the conditions when you recall something, then you are much more likely to recall more. So when students are sat doing their independent learning, maybe if they've got their music on, things like that, that's okay, maybe, if that's something that you're supportive of. But it isn't the best and most effective way to conduct revision. So it may be that you kind of separate out independent learning from revision. So revision should be done quietly, without headphones in, should be sat on a chair at a table if that is at all possible, because that's the way that they're going to have to recall it in the exams. You're not going to have your music in. That isn't what's going to be happening. So it's really, really useful to encourage and to know that as well. So involvement from you is very much appreciated in terms of showing interest in the independent learning. Bear with me, my battery's about to die, so we'll take a walk to go and get my battery. With this, independent learning is really, really important, obviously, but what we don't want is a student's response and a student's answer to be that from their parents. And so although we want you to support them with this, what we don't want to happen is for the revision really to be from, you know, things that you have done, because that's not really going to go very far in terms of them being successful with this. So if you could just think about that and the way that you are supporting them. Sorry, just grabbing my so if you could just think about the way that you are supporting them and that you are not obviously doing their work for them. It's counterproductive. It just means that they're not going to get as much out of it as they possibly could. But having those conversations with them, excuse me, having the conversations with them, you know, be interested in what they're doing, but don't do it for them. I think some of you might be relieved to hear that. Oh yeah, and as well, check its learning regularly, encourage them to do that. Resources are being added on there all of the time, so it's actually really useful for them to have access to its learning. And teachers monitor how often they're on there, so encouraging them, ask them if you've been on its learning, what are you seeing on there today. Sit with them and have a look at it by all means. And then onto some specific things from the independent learning toolkit, which link into revision. So this is quite useful. Space practice, this has got a few different ways in which students should be revising. And what you can do with this is maybe over the next week or two is conduct some research on those different strategies, if there's any there that you don't know about, just so you're kind of learning all of these different techniques. As I said before, it's something we will look at in tutor time as well. So space practice, you do not want to be spending 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday doing revision. That is not effective at all. But looking at, you know, small bite-sized chunks of time and then having gaps in between those. First off, try and use retrieval. So it's something that we do a lot in the department that I'm in at the moment, in social sciences. For those of you who do health and social care or sociology, is looking at retrieving information from your brain first. What do you already know? And then from there, what do you need to revise? What do you need to go over? Because you don't have to revise the stuff you already know that you're quite confident with. It's what we tend to do as humans. We take time out to learn the information, revise the information. It's our favourite bits of stuff that we know. Don't do that. What do you already know? And then, excuse me, cover the other stuff. Some strategies there: flashcards, answering practice questions, whole past papers. So some good strategies for you to think about. And then the revision myth busting, that will come up on the video that I've suggested that you watch from Mr. Tillman. We mustn't underestimate what can happen with regards to exam stress for students, because obviously this is that first experience of these really big formal examinations and a formal examination period. So what we do need to be understanding of is the fact that it can create stress. Also as well, the idea that it's quite normal for students to experience stress, because it's something that we would expect to happen. A little bit of adrenaline is a good thing. Having a small amount of stress is actually there to help you, really. That's the idea of it. But what we need to do is just try to get the balance right so that students are not experiencing too much stress, and that's really, your child better than anybody else, so please do look out for any signs that they may be experiencing too much stress with regards to exams, and just let us know. It's an opportunity for us to chat to them, to look at strategies. The exams are happening for all of the pupils in the year group, and it's just a case of us looking at seeing how can we support them best if there are any issues that do arise with this. So the most important thing as somebody who is coming up to do exams is that you talk to somebody if you are experiencing stress. There is don't hold that in, because we need to be able to look at ways to deal with it, and there's lots and lots of different things that we can do to support you. We're very, very experienced with that in school. I just really liked this quote. I thought this was good. So you have brains in your head, your feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose. And we've got the exams, they're happening, the PPEs, and you can make choices yourself about how successful you wish to be with these. And I really hope that for you are thinking about wanting to be successful, using it as an opportunity to learn what you are like as somebody who has formal exams, because that will hold you in good stead as we go forward, as I say, through the years, year 10, year 11, and then into those GCSEs. So just some final tips, really, just looking at some of the stuff excuse me, that we've already spoken about. So agree a balance between schoolwork and social life and stick to it, and that's really, really important. And there need to be some quite clear boundaries with regards to that. Having a social life is extremely important. It's an important part of what happens. However, you also need to recognise that you do in this term, over this next couple of months, your planning and focus needs to be directed towards those PPEs, please. Look at supporting their ability to prioritise. It's probably something maybe that they haven't necessarily had to think about particularly often, so that will be really useful. If there's an issue, what is the problem and how do we deal with it? So is there a problem coming maybe from the revision timetable? Has it been unrealistic? Has there not been enough gaps in there? Have there been too many gaps in there? If stress has been identified, what's the cause of that stress, and what can we do at school? What can you do at home to help to minimise that experience for them? Speak to them regularly about how their revision is going. Please don't underestimate the power of this. I talked about this earlier. The conversations that you have with your child reinforces the importance of these exams and lets them know that you are interested and you are there to support them as well. Look at stress points. Is it something that maybe stress happens a couple of months before, a couple of weeks before, a couple of days before? But us being aware of these things, as I say, it's a learning curve for the pupil and for home and for us as well, in terms of how they will deal with exams, and allows us to put strategies in place to support them going forward as well. Downtime is important. I've spoken about that throughout this, and it really genuinely is very, very important. People won't do well if they're not getting the right amount of sleep, if they're not having the right amount of exercise, the right amount of gaps away from the revision as well. And let's work together. A big message that I would always have for our community for year 9, when we're in year 10, year 11 as well, is we work together. So the school, what we do at school, what you do at home, if we can have that common language between us and just communicate together, then it really will help for your child to be successful as we go forward. A couple of little bits about timing. So this half term, really the focus should be on developing the ability to revise, looking at sorting out your space, starting your revision now. That's quite important, although it might not be specific excuse me, although it might not be specific to the actual maybe the content that you are going to have in your exams, still on the same subject, some of the content will come up. So even before you get those checklists from your staff from teachers, you still can start your revision, learn which types of revision techniques work for you, which ones maybe not so good, find a variety that are working, watch a video from Mr. Tillman, look at that study skills for success information, try out each of those different revision techniques and study habits as well. And then as we move closer towards those PPEs next half term, what we'll look at is be focusing very specifically on the content that's required for those exams, developing the skills as well. Obviously that will be ongoing in lessons too, creating your revision timetable and sticking to it, and then just use advice that's available, and that's from teachers and parents as well. They are week commencing the 25th of April. That's when your Year 9 PPEs begin. They take place over the course of that week. When you are not in exams, then you will be in lessons. So it will be the timings of the school day will be exactly the same for Year 9 students during their PPEs. I wish you every success in your planning and preparation, and please, as always, to students and parents, if any of you have any questions at all which you have regarding these, then please do get in touch either via email, on It's Learning Messenger. Come and speak to me in school if you're a pupil in school, and good luck, and thank you very much for your time. It's much appreciated.